Hi, it's Alexis.
And Christian from Tiny House Expedition. And we built our tiny house way back in 2014.
With the help of friends and family, over 9 months of ups and downs and trial and error, it was all worth it in the end.
We built a cozy custom home of our own that led us to an adventure of a lifetime. And now we're working on a shuttle bus conversion.
In our DIY Tiny Home Build Stories series, we hope to inspire and empower you to take on your own build by yourself or with help.
I needed help. I definitely needed help. And after you watch this, visit tinyhousebuild.com for how-tos and building tips. All right, guys, you got this. Let's do it.
So we are Edwin and Clara, and we live in a self-built, timber-framed tiny home in the middle of the woods. We've been together for 8 years. We've been officially married for 2.
We were living in San Diego at the time. I was going to community college and Edwin was going to university there. And we had a vision of wanting to live in the middle of the woods, but we really didn't know how we were going to do that. And we were kind of working towards a 9-to-5 lifestyle. And then at some point, both of us just got really burnt out and we really started second guessing how we were going to get to that cabin in the woods or living in the woods. And so one day we just kind of started talking about tiny homes. Both of us had researched it separately. And then both of us were driving with the idea and they were kind of already a new fad coming out. So we were interested in them. And then the opportunity just came where we actually had the potential to build one of our own.
For us, that opportunity was kind of unique in the sense of it was paired with devastation. In 2015, really bad wildfire ripped through this area. So we're in the middle of the woods of Northern California. And this fire unfortunately destroyed many people's homes. And one of those homes was a family that was a dear friend to ours. And they had spent 30 years building this beautiful 2-story timber frame home and barn. And it all got burned to the ground. So they were completely devastated, but they were one of the few families that were committed to rebuilding their life and coming back to this area and like making their lives again. I heard that they wanted to rebuild their home. So I wanted to help them do that. And then we also saw the opportunity maybe they could help us with our tiny home dream. So struck up a deal with the family. They live, very close to us here where we are now. And we set out to help them build. We didn't know anything about building, so we were learning on the way. Yeah, milling a lot of wood, learned how to milled a lot of wood. We finished building their barn, and then that's when we started building our tiny home.
I had not had any sort of interest in building or anything like that. I definitely was interested in the prospect of creating our own space, but I was very detached at the reality of it. I literally thought it was going to take us about a year, maybe max, to build this house. And 3 years later, 2 years later. But yeah, no, it was very empowering to, now I'm one of the more experienced millers on the site. I can mill a log, Edwin can mill a log, no problem. And that's kind of a fun, random skill to have, I guess. But yeah, it's gratifying for sure. We get questions a lot on social media about how to build a tiny house or what people need to buy or do to make this lifestyle work for them. And one of the things that I would love to share with people is that it takes a level of commitment that will draw a lot of time, energy, resources from your life. So it's a big commitment and it's not easy, and there's a lot of hustle and grind every single day to make it happen. And if you're willing to do that and put that out there, then that's when kind of people come in to help you, and your community will come in and help you, and even random manifestations start showing up. So if you have that commitment, it will meet you there, and that's just something that I would like people to know.
Building a tiny home I think there's this draw to it that it's obtainable. So a lot of, for me, that was a big thing. I was like, okay, I want take on building a full-size home. But I think I can build a tiny home. You know, that doesn't sound too hard. Definitely much more challenging than my initial expectation. And the other thing is all the same systems are there in a tiny home that are in a big home. So all the complicated stuff is in a tiny home. It's just now more compact. So it's almost more complicated in certain aspects, and trying to negotiate space and everything like that, it's very challenging. So it's like sometimes I think about it and I'm like, oh, if I had to build a bigger house myself, I don't think I would. I'm not even that scared about it, because it's like, oh, I can just make it work in a lot of ways easier than the tiny home, because I don't have to navigate the small tight spaces. We were really fortunate when we took on this build. We did not have savings. Like, we had nothing saved up. We just knew we wanted a tiny home. We didn't know what the costs were going to be involved, and we actually didn't realize we were going to build as high end as we ended up building. A lot of that was just serendipity. It was super fortunate when we teamed up with Paul and his ranch and rebuilding their life, that family's life. They were building really high end. So they had a lot of quality materials. The whole woods, they live on 200 acres, got burned down. And all those trees had to then get, felled, and there's quality lumber in there. So they had a mill that was given to them by the insurance that covered their loss. And we were out there and we were just milling these dead trees. So it was really cool because all of these trees were dead anyway. So we didn't actually have to ever kill a tree to get the lumber out of it. So we learned how to use the mill when we rebuilt their barn and their home. And in return, we could also use that mill for our own lumber. Saved us a ton on that. And then also materials like our countertop and a lot of the other things that we used in here, trim, oak trim, black oak, and black walnut. We have all of that in here that basically we just milled that. And so again, we were able to save a lot of money that way. And then we were also very frugal with all of our windows and our doors. We actually searched a lot on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace for used quality windows and doors. So yeah, we were able to cut a lot of the costs as opposed to building something completely brand new.
So the total cost of our tiny house that we kept track of was about $30,000. And we have a lot of different expenses that came kind of afterwards, repairs and that kind of stuff. But from what my Excel sheet says, is we spend about $30,000.
When we say, okay, we built this for $30,000, that's like not including our time and all of the deals and the things that we made on the side, So it's like the true cost, like if you had to actually put in the true cost and value of that, it's like, yeah, you're over $100,000 for a home.
That we were friends before we got together, which was a huge foundation for our relationship. And they always say that, but it is true. There's like a level of trust, communication. We have very similar expectations of our relationship that we really want to push each other to grow and to explore and just be bigger than what we think we can be. So that's one thing that I love about our relationship, and that it's not easy all the time. Sometimes it's easy to doubt ourselves, but I think one of the things we do is like push each other to be better. And one of the biggest things with this tiny home was just supporting each other and trying to be kind. It was really hard on both of us. I mean, it was a grind. And I just developed a lot of respect for him. He envisioned every beautiful thing that you see in this house was Edwin's dream. He's a manifester to the point where he's like, yeah, I want to make one of our walls open up, or I want to make the whole thing timber framed. And I'm just like along for the ride, I'm just kind of the ground crew, like, all right, well, how do we do this?
You're the engine and the battery.
Yeah, I'm the engine and the battery. Yeah, so, but yeah, it is hard living in a tiny home. Sometimes you get home from a long day and you just want to chill and relax, and the other person's in your space, and both of us really need downtime in order to recharge our batteries. So we've made a system, we have a loft, we have chairs, we have a bed, we have outside, so we kind of navigate each other's space that way. And I really appreciate that about us.
We knew the couple that lived here before, a really wonderful elderly couple, Ted and Lucille Fenner. And, I don't know if we should include their names, but they were an awesome, amazing couple. And I had a couple opportunities to work with Ted on the land where he was felling trees, and he's been like a logger a lot of his life. And even at 90 years old, I was working with him, and he's like getting in a bulldozer and getting out of a bulldozer and like chaining up this log that I just finished bucking. And he's like, listen, son, like you have to understand, like trees in a forest, they're like a crop, and you have to tend them to make the whole forest healthy. So there's this understanding. A lot of people have mixed feelings about logging or taking down trees, but you can actually do it in a way like this was on his own property, and you can see it paid off. Like he did an amazing job of making this a beautiful place. So after he passed away, there was no way that his wife could maintain the property anymore. And one of the situations that's occurring out here is a lot of properties getting bought up to actually become marijuana farms, because now that's legal to grow, and the land's it's an opportune spot for doing that out here. But because they invested so much to live out here, and they were like, you know, so closely knit to it, she really wanted it to go to someone who was just going to live and appreciate the land and not turn it into like an agricultural thing. So that's when she reached out to their dear friends, Paul and Deb, so our friends too, and they basically sold it to them for an amazing cost, with the intention that they could then, you know, sell it to somebody else who could basically take it on and keep living out the dream that they set out for. So yeah, we're currently in an agreement to own this land. After we built this tiny home, which was a long, arduous process compared to what my expectation, both of our expectation was. We thought we were going to be done in 6 months to a year, and it was like 2.5 years later, so it was like crazy. However, we were trying something that we didn't see anybody else with tiny homes do yet, which was timber frame. And not only just, like, you can timber frame a very basic structure, but we went for a hammer beam truss, which is in a lot of ways like what we've done here is completely overbuilt and over the top. However, it gives me a lot of life, and we talk about it all the time. It's like we'll lay down, we'll look up at these beams that we took a long time to like carve and shape, and it just is touching to us, and it gives a sense to this space of like comfort. So after doing that, it created a bit of energy. Other people saw it and were excited about it, and two of our close friends who actually helped us a lot on this build and really just donated their time and their energy to helping us build this, all teamed up, and we said, what if we built another one and sold it? So this whole last year, that's what we were doing. Definitely built it a lot faster. It took us like 6 months, 7 months this time, so we were able to do it faster, and it looks like we're going to build another one too after that. Yeah, that's our niche now. So we're doing these timber frame tiny homes, and it's been awesome. It's been a really fun process. And what's funny about that is we're in the middle of the woods, but where we do all the work is a 6-minute drive from here, right? That's where we built this one. So to be able to have that commute, yeah, I'm definitely spoiled. Yeah, so if you're interested in commissioning a timber frame tiny house that's very similar to this one, right now you can just contact us or me at our Instagram handle, which is @tinyhomewildadventures.
Hey, it's Alexis again.
And Christian from Tiny House Expedition. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
And to watch the full tour of the DIY tiny home you just learned about, click over here. And don't forget to visit tinyhousebuild.com for building how-tos and advice.